Welcome to the Rookie Scale Remote Film Room. I'm your host, John Chepkevich, and joining me today is all Big 12 sophomore, West Virginia's Miles Deuce McBride. What's going on, Deuce?
Nothing much. How you doing?
Not too bad, man. Appreciate you joining me. I know it's pretty shortly after the NCAA tournament, so appreciate your time. How have things been since the tourney? Kind of getting some time to decompress here?
Yeah, it's been good. I'm able to have online classes, so I've been able to come home, see my family. It's been pretty good.
That's good, man. It's been certainly an unprecedented season that I'm sure had its fair share of stresses beyond the norm. So enjoy this time, relax, and I am going to throw you right back into some Phil study here, though, if you don't mind.
All good.
Cool. Now it should be fun. And I think, over this season and even going into last season, you really have piqued the interest of professional evaluators, and your draft stock has certainly been rising over that time. I actually run a model every year to identify rising sophomores that are ranked, outside the consensus top 60 that aren't, thought to be surefire draft picks headed into a season, that share qualities similar to people who have been drafted as sophomores. And your name is one that popped in that. And it was great to see you kind of go out there this year and really, take ownership of your game and really show people what you bring to the table while driving winning for WVU. So we're going to go ahead and go through some game film and kind of talk through some of those specific aspects that make you really interesting as an NBA prospect, maybe a couple minor areas for potential improvement going forward that could help round out your game for the next level when you eventually do make that jump to the NBA. Sound good?
Sounds good.
So what we're going to start with here is, I think, kind of your most eye-popping skill on the offensive end, and that is shot creation. So you're a really difficult shot maker, which I think is a skill that's definitely valued at the next level, right? You have been a really consistent shooter off the catch and spot ups, which is great. But I think kind of the differentiator is your ability to create off the bounce, stop on a dime, and pull up. So we're going to let some of these clips run here. And you'll see right here, prime example, this one in the first round of the tournament, just stopping. And if you look right here, look at this defender's legs and how just off balance he is when you're able to stop on a dime. You want to maybe speak to kind of your ability to accelerate so quickly and then decelerate and get straight up and vertical into your jumper like that, and how you've developed that over time?
Yeah, honestly, I'd have to give credit to my brother. Playing one-on-one versus him and him trying to press up in me. And I mean, the only way I was going to get a shot off is if I'm going full speed and I just stop and pull up, or else he was going to take it from me or block it. So I got really good at just getting to one spot, or the spot I really wanted to get to, and just raising up.
Definitely, man. And I mean, it shows these are all difficult shots. That one is with a guy right in your face from deep, also in the tournament, right? Like, it seems like you're a fearless shot taker and shot maker. And, I like the anecdote about your brother. And it seems like your family has really played an important role for you in your kind of development as an athlete growing up. From what I understand, you come from a really athletic family, with your dad having played at Xavier and overseas, and your mom being a collegiate athlete at Ohio State. And I think your brother played college ball as well. Do you want to maybe quickly just speak to, the extent with which that has impacted you, and how it's been helpful to maybe have your dad, having gone through his experience himself as a collegiate and eventual pro?
Yeah, definitely. He's helped me a lot, teaching me the game since I was young, having many film sessions of our own, pausing the game and rewinding certain things. I mean, we've been doing that since I was probably, 8, 9 years old, trying to just teach me little different subtleties of the game, coming off a screen, shoulder to shoulder, if a guy presses in you, using your shoulder to get around their hip, things like that. So him just knowing the game and having been through the process of trying to become a pro, and as well as my brother, he played college ball, and now he's playing over in Serbia. So playing against them and just watching them has really helped me a lot. Obviously, I take what they don't do well and try to make it better, and things they do well, try to learn from them.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And it really shows in your game. And like you were speaking to, the little nuances of like running off screens and angles and that sort of thing. Like those are the little things that add up and make you a complete player. And it definitely shows in the film. And we'll keep going here. Just had a few more clips here of you hitting some nasty pull-up jumpers. This one, I wanted to take a chance to kind of stop and hear you maybe talk through how this thing's developing. So you're running a high pick and roll here. Maybe you just walk me through exactly what you're seeing and how you end up deciding to kind of snake this and just pull up as the big kind of drops a little.
Yeah, we knew TCU had a big that one was a little slower and they like to catch. He's a good shot blocker. So I knew one of our guys was stepping up right there. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to get to the basket. But I knew if I could get the big off balance, I could get to that elbow and have a good pull up that I'll make 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, that seems to be your sweet spot right there. Like you like to get to that spot and can really make stuff happen from there. And, in the NBA, when you eventually, do make that jump, there's going to be a lot of teams that switch, but there still are a fair amount of teams that run this sort of like drop coverage. And we've seen that kind of ramp up in recent years and kind of a resurgence of big men. And I think that there's a chance that at the next level, you'll be able to kind of work bigs like this and kind of have a good feel for, taking advantage of those drop coverages.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a couple more clips here of you just making some difficult jumpers off the bounce. And here I wanted to maybe just hone in on your ability to create space in a tight space, right? So you're kind of on the baseline here against Texas Tech, working this guy. And, it's really just some minor jab step, 1 to 2 dribbles, pull up. Is that something that you've been working on specifically at WVU or in the off season on your own to, not only be able to get to your spots on the elbow and create off of pick and roll and stuff, but to be able to just jab, make 1 dribble and create enough of a sliver to pull up?
Yeah, I would say, sorry, that's one of the bigger things I worked on through high school. Really, I didn't really play on the ball as much. So, when I got it off the ball, my dad was teaching me a lot of different jab step series and things like that, just to get your defender to, go one way. And all you need is that little tiny amount of space to get a pull-up jumper. And I mean, this guy's probably a couple inches taller than me, but I know the way I elevate on my jump shot, there's no way he can recover off his back foot and then block my shot. So.
Yeah, I mean that, with you measuring in at maybe 6'2" and being matched up against a lot of these lengthy wings, like you would think that it'd be a little bit more difficult just based on that size matchup for you to create these type of shots, but you consistently are able to do so. And you've proven yourself capable of, creating that sliver. And here we got a couple more against Texas Tech. This one's just ridiculously fluid off the bounce, uber confidence, out of the pick and roll. I just think it's been particularly impressive, your confidence level and even the increase from last year to this year to even be willing to take these shots, let alone knocking them down consistently. And this one here, another prime example of, you've got 6'11" Kai Jones, uber athlete, potential lottery pick here that you're just fearless in pulling up in his face. Is there something to be said for when you're matched up against some of these highly touted lottery level opponents like Kai or Jalen Suggs when you played Gonzaga earlier this season?
Yeah, definitely. I put in a lot of work in my game, not just my whole life, but especially during quarantine. So I would say these shots are, things that I'm very comfortable taking because of the amount of preparation I put in. But playing against those guys, they're all great players. You know, they all do something definitely well. But I think I'm just as, you know, talented, skilled, whatever you want to call it, and I can definitely play with, you know, the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's like often a small sample size thing where it's just one game or just a few possessions matched up against a particular player, but there's definitely something to be said for like being fearless in those high leverage moments against the top guys, like against Cade, against Jalen Suggs, against Kai Jones. I mean, that goes a long way and kind of proving to evaluators that, you know, you're not going to back down on the next level.
Yeah, definitely been overshadowed a lot throughout my life. You know, just glad I have the opportunity to play against some of these guys and, you know, for my name to be mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say you're overshadowed anymore. You've definitely burst out of that shadow. But real quick, we're going to just touch on a couple minor things on the offensive end that could be potential improvement areas for you going forward. Just wanted to particularly touch on finishing at the rim and kind of sometimes more so like fading away from contact and kind of throwing up more difficult floaters versus, you know, using your toughness and athleticism that we know you have to just get straight to the rim and just go up through that contact. So we're just going to go through a few examples of that and maybe just get your perspective as these are running on, you know, maybe what you could have done better in some of these situations and how you maybe plan on adjusting going forward.
Yeah, that's one of the main things I think I wanted to get better at over the off season. Trying to finish at the rim with a little bit more finesse. I think, you know, try to get it over lengthier dudes, but obviously I think I should have just taken a lot of them more, you know, shorter to the chest of the guy. I think one of the biggest things with me is sometimes when I'm going through the lane and things like that, I have my head down, always kind of scanning when that next defender is going to step up. I mean, I know we run a 4-out offense, but as you can see, the lane can still be a little bit packed up. So I think me just keeping my head up would probably help me finish probably 70-80% more of these. And I think, you know, I finished well a lot of times, and I think I missed some of the easier ones, honestly, the more I watch. But yeah, I think for sure I can finish better. I know I'm athletic and strong, so I think it'd be a lot better for me to, you know, put my shoulder on guys or, you know, up and under, you know, taller defenders that like to block shots.
Yeah, definitely, man. And it's like, it's something that, you know, for all these examples we're showing here, there's even more examples of you going ahead and doing it and like, you know, dunking over somebody or getting an and one. Like you definitely have that ability to, you know, finish through and around contact, you know, but just something here and there to maybe just avoid the kind of like swooping, like moving away from the rim, difficult ones, just nixing a couple of those from your game will probably just up your efficiency even more. And if you can get to the line, maybe a couple more times a game, you know, you're a good free throw shooter, all that just kind of like adds up in the aggregate. And I think could go a long way for just making you even that more dynamic offensively.
Definitely. I try to watch a lot of James Harden just to see, you know, the things he does. And even LeBron, I don't think people understand that he really takes a lot of young, like little guards off the bounce. Like people probably wouldn't realize how many little guards, quick guards he really takes off the bounce and how he uses his off arm and his body just to shield the ball and things like that. Mm-hmm. So trying to watch them, but like it's different when it's, you know, 3-second violation if, you know, another defender's in the paint. So
yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, those are two of the, you know, better finishers in the league. And there's definitely something to be learned from, you know, studying guys that have already been there and done it. And so I think that's a great sign, you know, that you are already doing that, you know, as a sophomore here, looking ahead and like getting a gauge for where's the league, what's going on there. And, you know, even some other players like you see, I know this isn't really a part of the game that a lot of people like, but the Trae Young foul drawing stuff, right? Like that
Absolutely.
clip we were watching earlier with you kind of snaking that pick and roll. Oftentimes, if you knock a couple of those down, get to your spot there, the guard is going to be kind of frantically chasing behind you, trying to get back and recover and block it. You might be able to get to the line a couple times using that kind of little gameplay as well,
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So now we're going to move over to the defensive side of the ball, which I think is kind of initially what popped off the page for you last year to get you on people's radar. And it's the off-ball defense and instincts and motor all kind of blending together to make you this super impactful defender that, not only is getting up in people's shirts as an on-ball defender, but kind of covering up for teammates' mistakes and making reads in the help side and digging in and just kind of, making an impact on winning on that side of the ball. So we're going to run through a few of those clips now that are particularly highlighting that, which I think is maybe your immediately most translatable skill. There's a quick pass from the top here, and there's this little side pick and roll action going on. You want to maybe just run me through, after your guy kicks the ball to the wing and you see this side pick and roll happening, like what are you reading and what makes you decide to start cheating over that direction, and how do you end up doing what you do here?
Well, the first thing I noticed as soon as I turned my head, and obviously Syracuse, they run a lot of things high to get the basket exposed, and they have great shooters coming off down screens and things like that, and they like to pick and quick pocket passes and things like that. So as soon as I saw my guy, I know he's a non-factor. He's pretty much walking away by half court, and I knew this little action is something they're very successful at. That big Merrick, he's a great passer. So I know our guys were going to hard hedge or try to trap him, and Boeheim being 6'6", he's going to get out of that pretty easily if he has to make a quick decision though. And I know if he goes all out on that decision, I then have to go all out on mine and rotate very fast.
Yep, which is exactly what you do, cause the turnover here. And it's just, I'm sure that some of that comes naturally to you, right? Like just your instincts and everything. But a lot of it is knowing personnel and film study and scouting ahead of time, right? So is that, you want to maybe speak to the extent with which, beyond just what Huggy and the staff would run you through, but the extent with which preparation in advance of games plays a role in how you read and react to actions during any given game?
Yeah, like I said, my dad and even my high school, my high school coaches, we watched film probably an hour before almost every practice. So, I feel that the more you just even watch basketball, whether, women's, you can always pick something up. So that's what I do. I love watching basketball, studying other players and what they do well and what they don't do well. So I think just the more you watch, the more experience you gain, you just start to notice little patterns and little tendencies of other players,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll see that on display as we run through the rest of these defensive clips. Your motor definitely runs hot. There's a missed shot here. They start going in transition. And, if we take a look at it, you're just about as far away from the action as possible here back in the paint. But you're still the one that ends up making the play here. Just put your head down, hustling back, getting here, tapping it, and hustling for the save. I mean, that's just a microcosm of what you bring to the table defensively and with your energy.
Yeah, I knew the guy dribbling wasn't going to be able to finish, so he was going to look to pass out. So I knew if I hustled back, I'd be able to get a steal if he chose the guy, which I thought he was going to choose the shooter.
Right. No, that was a perfect read, good hustle. And then this one, I think this play against Oklahoma State is, kind of a signature sort of off-ball read for you where you're kind of, out on this wing as the pick and roll's going away from you. And you do a great job consistently throughout the year of getting to the help side and kind of cutting off these little dish off passes to the big men and getting in there and digging it out and causing turnovers. So we'll let this thing run. And so this gets passed to the high post here. And, obviously you're kind of between two guys here, but you make a great read and kind of see that the threat is down on the block here and then are quick enough to close that gap, get down there, caused the turnover. And I think we'll see that on a couple more clips here. But do you want to maybe speak to, I guess, when you're weak side in a pick and roll and kind of reading what's happening and what the action is, like, you know, how you kind of run that balance of guarding two guys and rotating and making those reads and, you know, quick decision making?
Yeah, I would pretty much say starting out in a stance, that's probably one of the biggest things. Always just kind of being on the lookout for any possibilities. And like, it goes back to just really knowing tendencies, knowing what guys want. You know, he's going to turn his back probably the wrong way, you know, and if that guy out by half court catches it, you know, that's in our advantage. He's nowhere near the rim. So I'm pretty much going to make sure I cover up a layup before I give up a three. That's just how we're taught at West Virginia and in our defensive, you know, and our defensive principles. So, you know, I don't think he saw me, and I knew if I could, you know, step in front, you know, even if he would have lobbed it, I think I would have got it. So just being off ball, just being in a stance and kind of ready to make a play is one of the main things I think I bring to the table.
Definitely. Like, your closing speed is great, and like, it really goes to your advantage to be able to create these turnovers that, you know, you're able to close this gap so quickly. So it's not like you have to early rotate and be there way ahead of time, because then it's like an easy decision for that guy to kick it back out. Like, you're able to kind of really split the gap and then close it so quickly that it kind of makes this big guy think that maybe he does have a chance to dish it off to the block, but you're able to close it quickly and kind of, you know, almost lure him into it.
Right.
Next clip here is against TCU. So now, yeah, this one I particularly like because it's another sort of element of off-ball defense, but it's catching kind of your initial rotation here, right? Like, you're popping out this. You see that McNeil is kind of recovering to the ball, so you recover to your guy, but it's not like you know, are just full tilt, you know, leaving the help line there and kind of like not plugging that gap. You're still, you know, covering your guy, but being able to jump back into the play and dig and get this steal. I mean, this, I think, particularly is like a good microcosm of West Virginia basketball in general and how you guys kind of play as a defensive unit. But I think there are repetitive instances of you making great plays like this, where you're kind of, you know, recovering, moving defensively, and then, you know, quickly able to adjust and help your teammate out. Do you think that, I guess, as you move to the next level and it's a little bit more spaced out in the NBA than it is in college, like, what extent do you think that will impact kind of how you play defense off ball, and the extent, you know, kind of how your rotations will work, and kind of the feasibility of some of these things, right? Like, if your guy is more knockdown shooter in the corner, maybe that's not as easy to dig there as it is in college, right?
Right. And I would say the starting position, you know, the whole thing I think with defense is making the offense do what you want to do, or do what you want them to do. Yeah. So I would say, knowing Sean, you know, not our best defender, but as long as he pushes him somewhat my way and him guarding one of their better players, if he made a hard closeout, he wasn't going to shoot it. So I knew he's most likely going to drive it. And if Sean does his job, which is, you know, push him away from the middle, it would be my job then to help, you know, give a little stunt, help Sean. And I knew my guy in the corner wasn't as much of a shooter, so I could help. And even if he does kick it to him, which would be harder, just him using his left hand, being a right-handed player, it would, one, give me time to recover. And the guy not being a knockdown shooter, he's most likely going to want to drive it too. So then I start thinking the next step is I got to keep him forced to the baseline and then cut him off. So it's just progression by progression. You know, basketball to me is a lot of simple things done repeatedly, and that's what makes it hard, is just doing the next simple thing to the next, to the next, to the next.
Definitely, man. And like, that explanation right there is, you know, exactly why I think you have the mentality to be a really good pro, an impactful pro right off the bat when you do make that transition. Is like, you clearly know the game. You clearly know personnel, like you know these little nuances, and like you don't have to overthink about it as it's happening, right? You're able to apply it quickly and effectively.
Just watching NBA games, you know, I think a myth told about NBA is they don't play defense, and I don't for one second believe that, knowing that they're playing against the best offensive players in the world. And I think a lot of the NBA, people don't realize how much they rotate and have long closeouts against some of the best guys. And
Yeah.
I like watching some of the better defenders, how they know they might get beat off the dribble, but as long as they send the guy, you know, to, you know, a place where it's going to be a harder shot, a more difficult pass for that guy. You know, that's one of the main things I think the NBA is just trying to make it as hard as you can for the offense to score. Because at the end of the day, you're playing against the best guys that, you know, can score the ball in all different types of ways. So you want to force them into the most tough shot they can take, the hardest pass, you know, close the gaps and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's just about making life just incrementally more difficult for the offense. And you have certainly done your fair share of that at West Virginia. And, you know, quickly before we close out here, not a lot to nitpick on the defensive end because, like, you're just a really, really good defensive player. But if there was to be one thing, you know, I guess even before I go into the clips, where would you say maybe that you could stand to improve a little bit defensively?
I would say overhelping. I think sometimes I am a little too anxious to make that next read. And I do think, you know, with shooters and guys that, you know, are way better catch and shoot shooters versus guys that aren't as good finishers, sometimes I still go in and help when maybe, you know, there's a rotation that wasn't needed. But in our defense, we'd rather give up, you know, a 3 than a 2. So I think obviously moving to the next level and playing against better shooters, that's something I'd have to realize is that guy really going to finish, or is that guy, I mean, a college player is going to make a step in shot, you know, way more often than a guy is going to finish over a big and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly kind of the stuff that we're going to go into in this last set of clips here. It is kind of like over helping and screen navigation, but to your point, like it's rooted in like, you know, good intentions, and like you know, you're ultimately like trying to help your teammates, trying to do the right thing. And every once in a while, like if that goes awry, that's, you know, that's part of the game. That happens, right? But, you know, I'm just going to go through a few clips here. So this one's in a high leverage moment against Baylor. This one's more so like screen navigation, right? So do you want to maybe just talk me through, like, as this play is developing, kind of what you're reading here and like how you decide to go over the screen and, you know, ultimately get kind of caught?
Yeah, I knew their play was going to come off of double screens. We could have switched here, me and the 4-man, but I didn't want to, and I actually slipped. I remember that play because I knew he was going to fade it. I was already on it, but I just slipped just a little too much right there and got the 3. But I probably should have chased and made him curl it. But, you know, like I said, it's just things that happen. I probably should have chased in hindsight, made him curl it, probably dump it off to the big. But I just felt like
I mean,
if I didn't,
it's easy to nitpick it.
Yeah.
Right. But you know, I mean, like if you're there half a second earlier, maybe you're deflecting that pass and it's going out of bounds. Right. But, you know, it's just an example of like, you know, in overtime and kind of, you know, knowing Baylor has great guards, like it's just maybe a little bit riskier to take that route as opposed to, you know, the other options available. Right.
Absolutely.
And then here against Texas, I think we have, so this was kind of similar to a play earlier where you were able to kind of like read and react to, you know, your guy fading to the corner and kind of get in and dig and cause a steal. This time it kind of, you know, went the other way, right? Where you came up here and doubled and he got that kind of clean kick to the corner for a wide open 3.
Yeah, we were kind of struggling early in that game, and Coach Huggs put in a freshman that, you know, I should have known you know, I try to play a little bit more aggressive here and try to, you know, get Texas playing a little faster. And I thought I told him to rotate, but I forgot he was a freshman. Obviously, that's on me 100%, knowing we had 2 freshmen in. They were trying to do their jobs as best they could, and I put them in a bad position, asking him to rotate right there. But I probably, like I said, play it safe with those guys in and kind of just stick with my guy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's a team game. So, you know, that particular play at the outset, it looks like, oh, Miles is being over aggressive, but like theoretically in the scheme of things, he probably should have been rotating out there. And then the big down below should have rotated over to his guy and kind of kept that ball rolling. And that's kind of how you guys always play defense, right? But
Yeah.
you know, I guess that comes down to, like you were alluding to, like knowing personnel and knowing like when to take risks versus not, based on kind of, you know, what's going on, who else is on the court, etc. Right?
Definitely. I just feel as, you know, my game is always on the attack, and sometimes it's better if I pull back.
Yeah, for sure. And then this one is more of like more of like a classic overhelp, right? Where there's a pick and roll going on here. You're the weak side corner. And of course it is your job to be help line here. But it seems at this point that the big man kind of has it under control, has it covered. Maybe like there's not as much risk of him running open to the lane and you needing to tag him, right? So do you think maybe just like got yourself caught a little bit too much up in help here? Or was it just more so that you were comfortable laying off the shooter and like, you know, let the chips fall as they may type thing?
It's more as, you know, I think from my angle, I didn't know if our big was going to be able to get there. And like I said, in our defense, that's my rotation first. And this guy that's guarding the guy on the wing is supposed to rotate to the corner. Like I said, he probably had him covered, but, you know, in our defense, it's more giving up 2s and 3s, and I just got over a little too much. But I definitely probably should have, you know, been a little bit closer to my man. So even if I had to go help, I could probably still get there. And even if he kicks it to the corner, I can still get there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's just, you know, just a minor tweak, and not even necessarily, again, your fault, because, you know, it's hard to attribute entirety of blame on defense because it's all a team game. It's all working together. It's all rotations as a cohesive unit. So, you know, just a couple of these are just a few examples of just getting a little bit caught in a tough spot via overhelp or via over rotation or over aggressiveness or something like that, right? Like none of it's a big deal. I'd rather see you being aggressive than not aggressive. That's kind of your calling card, and what you'll ultimately bring to the table at the next level is that level of aggression that you bring to the table. But, you know, similar to the potential offensive improvement area that we talked about, it's really only like minor tweaks here and there, like maybe not taking 1 or 2 more unwarranted risks throughout the course of the game. Like over the long term, that sort of adds up and can make a huge difference on your overall impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's obviously, as I watch film, I notice these things too. So I'm still learning the game, and you know, I'm willing to always take criticism about my game and really listen to what anybody has to say.
Yeah, and that sort of like level of self-reflection and self-awareness, I think, is in and of itself super valuable from the perspective of, you know, potential NBA suitors. When you do make that jump, like they want to know that, you know, if they're drafting a player, that, you know, he is willing to take coaching, willing to take criticism, and is able to kind of reflect back on things that happen and then, you know, act on it and carry it forward like in a better way thereafter and keep improving their game. So it seems that you definitely have that self-awareness in spades. And I'm sure, you know, the staff at WVU loves that about you. And I'm sure your eventual, you know, NBA coaches and staff will certainly value that when the time comes. But that's all I've got for the film room here, for the clips. I definitely enjoyed like going through those, hearing your perspective on what you bring to the table on the court. But before we wrap up here, I'd like to finish with 2 questions. And the first of those 2 is, what is your motivation or your why? What's your drive, and what kind of keeps you going and motivates you to be sort of the best player that you can be?
Honestly, I just love the game of basketball. I love, waking up and having a chance, play at one of the best Division I schools. Like I said, I mean, I got hurt my junior year, and not being able to play, it makes you really, understand that you can't take that as many things in life for granted. So just being able to wake up, put on my gym shoes, put on my clothes, and go out and practice is just one of the things I love. Not a lot of people get a chance to do things like I get to do. Basketball has, had me travel around the world, around the country, and just given me a lot of opportunities to make really good, long lasting friendships and a lot of relationships. So it's one of the biggest motivations.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome. And then the last thing that I want to ask is, when you eventually do decide to make the jump to the NBA, whether it's now or down the line, I just want to kick it to you to be able to speak in your words. Who is Miles McBride? And if an NBA team were to bring you into their organization, what can they expect from you both on and off the court?
I'm all about basketball, so things off the court really won't affect me. I've always been coachable. I'm a hard worker, and I'm always just going to give it my 100% effort, 100% preparation, and 100%, great attitude. And things can get rough, but I'm always going to be there in the gym, working hard, early, late nights, things like that. Just a team guy.
Yeah, I think every front office would sign up for that, man. Really appreciate your time. Love what you bring to the table on the court. Think it's going to translate really cleanly to the next level. And you clearly seem to be a really awesome dude off the court. Best of luck to you going forward, and definitely going to be rooting for you, man.
Appreciate it.